So today I'm going to answer some questions and kind of respond to some comments. Yeah, but it's early in the morning before work and I'm going to go outside because it's really nice. It's a little bit chilly. I'm gonna find a spot to hang out outside. Right, I think this is a good spot. I was gonna go down there on the deck, but it is kind of wet. I don't know. Maybe it rained last night or it's just kind of dewy. So we're up here at summer camp for my cactus. I think it was Lisa commented after I made a movie transplanting some new succulents and cactus. She's like, I like to put my cactus outside and I call it summer camp for my cactus. So thank you, Lisa. I did the same thing. That was a great idea and I thought it was hilarious. But anyway, I just wanted to respond to some of your questions that are a little bit harder to answer on just, you know, typing out on the internet. So probably going to get a lot of that from the critters. So let's see, we'll just jump right in. And so I think it was KLK12399. They said they planted Heuchera many times, but it just disappears in a few years. And wondered if I could recommend some reliable ones that I have had. So I feel like sometimes Heuchera does tend to do that. I would say it depends on your zone. I am in zone 4-5, so for me, I can only speak to, you know, my zone and what I've experienced in my yard and in my zone with certain plants. But for me, in zone 4-5 here in Michigan, there are some, in fact, hardier ones that I have noticed. I feel like Blackout, the Proven Winner Primo Black Pearl, that one does really well for me. The Proven Winner Dulce series, like the Wild Berry, Wild Rose, the Cherry Truffles, that does really well for me. And then there are some other ones that are not Proven Winners, like Caramel, that does really nice for me. Southern Charm, Obsidian. So those are some ones that I've noticed continually come back, and I've had them for longer than like you're saying, about 2 or a few years or whatever, and they do really well. I will say, like, you know, to be well watered but really good drainage. So my gully garden, it kind of is on a hill and then it flatlines to this gully and then it goes down on another hill. The ones that are kind of in that flatline area get a lot more moisture and hold a lot more water in the soil, and so those, I don't think that area has as good of drainage, and so I don't think those do as well. So that could be a thing. Another thing is in the winter time, the deer, I've noticed, especially this past winter, we didn't have a lot of different winter snowstorms, but we had like a couple giant winter snowstorms where the snow never melted, it just stayed, and so the deer were looking for food during that time, and they came in and they ate all my Heuchera up near my house, actually, which they hardly ever come up near my house. And I didn't think they were gonna come back because they ate them back to the ground. I actually started crying because I've had those Heuchera for a really long time. And a Heuchera for me in my zone is like kind of like a semi-evergreen, so you don't want to cut it back. You want to leave the foliage on there because that helps protect the crown of the plant and it helps protect the roots over the winter. And then in the winter time, or after the winter's over in the springtime, you want to come in and just, you know, selectively cut off the dead crunchy leaves. But you do want to leave the foliage on there, so that might help if you're cutting it back. But anyway, I thought the deer were going to kill my plants and they didn't. They came back just fine. It took a little bit longer than normal, but they did come back. So I don't know if that answers your question, but I would say maybe if you have harsh winters, try to protect it in the winter. Maybe put like some leaves over it. Don't cut it back. Maybe put something over it to protect it from the snow if you are in a zone that gets snow like I do. Don't plant it in a spot that doesn't have good drainage, but make sure it's well watered. And yeah, good luck. Sometimes I feel like Heuchera can be a little bit fussy, but there are varieties, the ones I just listed, that do well for me. Sue Bailey and quite a few other people ask, is that you singing? Yeah, that's me singing. I love to sing and play the guitar. I can play the piano too. I don't usually do that very often because I think it's more fun to play the guitar. But yeah, that's me singing in the music. So I hope that you like it. I've like loved old country songs and yeah, like old country gospel and stuff like that. It's what I grew up on. My grandparents used to sit around a campfire and sit around my grandparents' old farmhouse and just sing with the banjo and the guitar and piano and all these different instruments and sing all the old gospel songs. So that's like what's in my blood. Anyway, yes, that's me singing. Alma is asking what edging I use. So the edging I have in my garden beds around like all the more formal areas that I want to, you know, stay in its place. That edging is from Home Depot. It's just the metal edging. I think you can get the same exact edging at Lowe's too, but it's just the brown metal edging, and I bought the majority of it, you know, when we moved in after we built our house, and it was only like $8 to $10 a strip. It's literally like $25 a strip now. So if I was going back and having to buy it all right now, I would not pay that kind of money for it. I already didn't want to pay the $8 to $9 for it in the first place, but I thought, you know, this is an investment and I'm not putting it in all of my garden beds. In my gully garden and like around my wood pile and stuff like that, I don't really have any edging. I just like it to be kind of free form, and that way I can like dig out more easily if I wanted to, but the spots that I want to stay where they're going to be and I don't want to mess with it, that is the edging that I use, and it works amazing. It's super easy to use. It looks really intimidating. It does take a little bit of hard work to kind of like break the stakes. The stakes come almost not welded, but like kind of attached to the edging itself. So you do have to kind of pry those off a little bit and do some digging, but it's super easy. Lupo 52492 is asking if incredible hydrangeas bloom in the shade like Annabelle's do. To be honest, I don't know for sure because I don't have any Incrediballs in the full shade. I only have 3 Incrediballs in my garden, and I just put them in the summer of 2020, I think. So they've only been in for a couple summers, and I'm kind of waiting for them to put on a little bit more growth before I like dig them up and hack at the roots to try them in the shade. So I'll get back to you on that once I actually experiment with it. But I feel like so far what I've noticed between the 2 different varieties are super similar, and I'm gonna just guess. This is just my personal opinion, but I'm just gonna guess that they will probably bloom in the shade. Probably not as much as they would if you gave them the light requirements that they thrive in, which is about at least 4 to 6 hours of sun. But I would go out on a limb and say they probably will bloom in the shade, but I don't know that for sure. But I'm definitely gonna try it. It's worth a try. They just might not bloom as much as they would if you had them in the full sun. Let's see, Glenda Riggs is asking if you can divide Heuchera. Yes, you can, absolutely. I have divided it a couple different times. Heuchera, you know, it doesn't get very big as like, you know, like a hosta. You could put it in and it's a little square quart, and then a couple years later it's this big. So I feel like I don't like to divide my Heuchera as much, because even if it does get a little bit bigger, it's still small in its entirety, and I like it. I like it how big it gets, if that makes sense. I don't really want to divide it, but you definitely could. I feel like there are Heuchera that would take a division better than other Heuchera, like probably the Heuchera I listed that are super hardy for me. Those ones I obviously try to divide. There are other ones that struggle a little bit that I wouldn't touch. I would just let them be. But yeah, you can definitely divide the heuchera. I would wait until it gets established a little bit in your garden though. Like I would give it like 2 to 3 years before you start dividing it, because that's what I've noticed my heuchera do better if I can like be patient, leave it where it's at, because I tend to like move things around like a crazy person. But I do let my heuchera kind of root in and stay in that spot. If I picked that spot for it, I will definitely leave it in that spot for like 2 to 3 years and just see what it does before I would move it or divide it. Let's see here. So Eda is asking about my trellis that I have. I got that from Kinsman Garden Company. It is the lattice arch, and right now I just looked it up and it's $275. So that's a lot of money, but I feel like everything is really expensive right now. I want to say I didn't pay that much for it. I bought it like a year ago and I think it was $175, $100 less, but I do remember using a $100 Visa gift card that I got for Christmas, so that might be where that $100 less comes in. I honestly can't remember, but yeah, it's the lattice arch from Kinsman Garden Company, and right now it's $275. So it's an investment. Nancy Noescano? Sorry. How do your plants perform with regular soil versus potting soil? I know that was probably like a super foreign thing for you guys to see, for me to dig up soil from my ground and put it in a pot and then put plants in it. I would only do that with perennials. I wouldn't do that with annuals or houseplants or succulents or cactus or anything like that. Number one, I have really good soil, free. I remember growing up, like when my mom was planting and my grandma was planting, they didn't have the money to go out and buy a bag of potting soil, and honestly, if I remember right, that kind of stuff wasn't readily available as it is now, and they just did with what they had. And so that's kind of how I've learned to be frugal, and that's kind of how I've grown up. So I just use what I have, and thank God what I have, what God has given me in my yard is really good soil. So I utilize it. Number two, now this is just in my head. This is not like a scientific thing that I got from like a smart person. This is just how I think in my head, but I think I have really good soil. Why not use it for my perennial? I also like to think that once I have that perennial for a year or two in that pot, I'm probably going to take it eventually out of that pot or planter, and I'm going to put it back in my garden. And so since it's been growing in that soil in the planter, it's not going to have as bad as a transplant shock once I take it out of that planter and put it into my soil, because it's going back in the same soil it's been living in for the last couple of years. So that, like I said, that's not like a scientific thing. That's just what I made up in my head. I kind of just do what I do and what works for me. I hope that answered your question. They seem to do just fine. The perennials, I've never had any problem. A few of them I've had for a couple years in the planters, and they're doing just fine with my native soil. I hope that answers your question. Lori T, have you thought of a garden pond? Yeah, I have, Lori. You can see my gully garden from our bedroom window, and I love looking out there and just like imagining things, like what I could add and take out and move. And my husband actually we were standing there looking out the window, and he's like, you should put a pond in here. And I was like, I know, I've been wanting a pond too, but I don't want to execute on it until I have like a solid plan. And before I have a solid plan, we have a tree that needs to come down, a dead tree needs to come down. Before the tree comes down, we got to get our chainsaw back that we borrowed to a friend. So first things first, we got to get that tree down. And then I'm thinking, like, I'm looking at it right now, that's why I'm looking off into the distance, but I'm thinking that somewhere around my bench I might put a pond, kind of like as and not necessarily a pond, but some sort of water fixture, maybe like a waterfall into a pond. I don't know, but yes, I have thought about that. I just want to make sure I put it in the right spot, and I need to do a few things before I can actually like visualize it, but it's a great idea. Thank you. Helen wants to know if I live by an airport. I do not live right next to an airport, but I live close enough where you can for sure hear the airplanes when they're taking off and landing. A lot of people are asking about my visit with Jack Barnwell. So I wanted to talk to you a little bit more about this. He was so gracious in talking to me. It was raining on and off that day, and he was out trimming a lilac bush, I think, and my husband spotted him because he's got this like hat that he wears. I sound so creepy right now. Anyway, he's like, I think that's Jack Barnwell. I'm like, that's Jack Barnwell. Anyway, I worked up enough courage to ask him for a picture. He graciously got his picture taken with me. And I don't know, about 15-20 minutes later, I was filming the little hotel Iroquois garden there next to the hotel, and him and his like planting partner walked up and started talking to me. And so I took advantage of it, and I asked them some questions. I found out one of his favorite hosta is a salmon substance. One of his favorite hydrangea is a tough stuff hydrangea, especially the tiny tough stuff, which is the blue one. And so this is actually really cool and humbling at the same time, but I said, I kind of, I was touching the tough stuff, and I was like, I wish I could grow these type of hydrangea in my garden. And he goes, why not? And like just like matter of fact, like, well, why can't you? And I go, well, because I don't know, they just really don't bloom very good for me. And he goes, well, why not? And I was like, I don't know. And he goes, you probably don't give them enough sun. Did you plant them like in a part shade? And I was like, yeah, actually. And he goes, yeah, they're gonna need a lot more sun than what you think. And I go, okay, then. And then I said, okay, then I'll probably need to water it a lot, right? And he's like, yeah. Hydrangea. So I kind of like learned so much in that tiny little conversation with him, but also I felt empowered because the way he answered me, it was almost just like, well, why not? Why can't you grow these kind of hydrangeas? And I thought, yeah, why not? Like, I'm gonna try it. So I'm on the lookout for some tough stuff and tiny tough stuff hydrangeas. Thanks to Jack Barnwell, I'm going to try them. I've never tried them before. Oh, and that's another thing too. I said, well, I haven't tried the proven winter ones. I've only tried the endless summer. And he's like, oh yeah, those ones aren't as strong of a plant. So that was good to know. He said that the endless summer hydrangeas, if you're finding they're not blooming, they're not as strong as a plant as like the proven winter ones. Obviously, they're proven winners. So Laura Daniels asks, what does the company I work for do? The company I work for grows perennials, and we are a vendor out of Meijer grocery stores. And so all the perennials you see in a Meijer grocery store, those are grown by my company. So that's what my company does. She also says, along with a few other people, Judith being one of them, you need to get an auger to dig your holes. I do have an auger for bulb planting, just because it's hard to dig a tiny little hole for a bulb. But honestly, I don't know. Who else is with me on this? I love my shovel. I love like just the old school, getting my foot on that shovel and shoving it into the ground and digging up the dirt and tilling it a little bit and hacking at it with my, the whole process feels good for me. I mean, don't get me wrong, I'm sure the augers are amazing. There are sometimes I've wanted one for if I'm digging a huge hole for a tree, but that's what I have my giant husband for. So maybe I'll break down and buy an auger one of these days, but the satisfaction of old school in it with my shovel, just digging into that earth that God made and tilling it up. I don't know, there's just something about it. I like the whole process. And maybe that's just the country in me, the old school in me. I'm kind of an old soul. But anyway, yeah, it's a great suggestion, and I might try that someday. But I do love my shovel, and I do love digging a hole. And Stacy Allard, she says, yay, you sang it. I sure did, Stacy. Thanks for suggesting that song, Sunshine. That song, I've heard it so many different times. And you know when you've heard songs for years and years and years, but you'd never actually listened to the lyrics? The lyrics were just so touching, like when, especially the chorus part, when it's like, sunshine on my shoulders makes me happy, and then sunshine in my eyes could make me cry. That part, when I was singing it, like it actually made me cry. I was like, I didn't know the lyrics said this. And then, sunshine on the water looks so lovely, sunshine almost always makes me up. I was like, oh, these lyrics are so beautiful. So anyway, thank you for reintroducing me to that song. It was beautiful and super fun to sing. So then I brought my computer out here because I have some comments that were a little bit long and I didn't want to write them down on my notepad. Oh, your password is incorrect. Alright, let's see here. Just a few more, because this movie is probably getting super long. So, Trav's Gardens, Trav's Haunted Yard. Ooh, that sounds cool. I wonder if you have like a garden and you turn it into a haunted house or something in the Halloween. I did that one time. I had the kids in my neighborhood, in the gully garden. I made this giant spider web and I hung ghosts from the trees and I had bowls of candy throughout my gully garden and the kids ran up. I should do that this year too. I wonder if you do that. I'm jealous you have blooms on your Annabelle hydrangeas. I have 2 planted 4 years ago and they are in the shade next to a dogwood tree. I never get blooms on them. I chopped them all the way down to the ground last fall. I think you're saying the foliage is beautiful but they don't bloom. I'm going to try to dig them up and move them. I'm going to give them 1 more year and then they are out of here. You sound like me. If they don't bloom next year, your garden is beautiful. Nice job. Thank you. And gosh, it's hard to say. So if your Annabelles are not blooming in the shade, you said in the shade, right? They're in the shade. So I will say, I found in the shade, they don't bloom as much as they would in the part shade or sun. But you do have to make sure they're watered well. If hydrangeas don't have a lot of water, they're not going to put on any blooms. So I would say make sure they're getting enough water. And then if you do have them planted right next to an established dogwood tree, maybe that dogwood is soaking up some of the moisture, most of the moisture in the soil, and that could be why. Maybe try to fertilize them a little bit more. You could use the rose tone espoma fertilizer. That's good for woody shrubs that need to flower. Could use that. Let it establish for a little bit. I like to leave my hydrangeas, a brand new planted hydrangea, in the ground for at least a couple of years before I go splitting it and moving it. I don't know, maybe that will help. So lots of water, maybe give it some fertilizer. You might need to move it somewhere else where tree roots aren't soaking up the moisture and nutrients. And then wherever you move it, maybe try to leave it there for a couple of years to give it time to put on some blooms. Your garden is gorgeous, well done. This is from Nancy Wallace. Your plants are loving, you're singing to them. Okay, I thought there was a question in here. The fact that you are not alone. Oh yeah, I wanted to bring this up. I love how you garden, not just what you are planting, but the fact that you accept the fact that you're not alone in the garden, as you can hear. Birds squawking, chipmunks chirping, raccoons digging. Yes. I love the fact that you accept the fact you're not alone in the garden and these things happen and they're beyond your control. You just roll with the flow. And yeah, I mean, that's how it is. I could go out and I could get stressed out about how am I going to control this chipmunk situation. Well, the answer is I'm not. They're chipmunks. They're wild chipmunks. They multiply ridiculously every single year. I can do little things here and there, but I'm I just need to let it go, embrace it, and learn how to deal with it and work around the situations. And that kind of helps me stay positive and helps me enjoy gardening a little bit more, as I just realize, you know, I'm sharing my space with all these different critters, and as long as they're not actually destructing anything and making me pay money to fix certain things, then, you know, we can all just live here together and pretend like we're in a Disney movie and this is like the Disney Garden Princess movie, okay? But yes, Nancy, you're exactly right. So then Dawn says that she has fire ants in her garden and she wishes that she could garden in flip-flops. She's jealous that I can garden in flip-flops. And then I love this, Glenda comments, and this is my response to the flip-flops. A lot of people are either loving that I wear flip-flops or concerned about my feet, which I appreciate that. Thank you very much. I do, when I am digging like a crazy person, I do put shoes on. But Glenda says, I do most of my garden barefoot. Me too. Unless I need to use a big shovel instead of my small hand shovel, yes. Or unless I'm mowing. It's the country girl in me. Amen, Glenda. I walk around barefoot 90% of the time. That's how I am too. I grew up in the country. I just love being barefoot. There's something about the feel of grass and dirt and mulch and rock on my feet. I love all the senses. I love smelling and hearing and seeing and feeling. I love it. There's just something about wearing flip-flops that helps me take in all of the feels, I guess. And then another thing too is I can like rinse off easier. A lot of times I get super dirty at the end of my gardening escapades, and I just take the hose and I'm clean. Super easy. And my flip-flops are rubber, so I don't have to worry about drying them out. But yes, I do love wearing flip-flops. It's just the country girl in me, like Glenda said. Let's see, so Bridget Bautista says, Jess, I'm wondering if you could do a video for renter-friendly ideas for planting. Maybe some ideas on potting plants. We are overseas and we can't dig. I would like to have some plants for our patio, easy maintenance, which can be planted together. That's a great idea, Bridget, and I could totally do a video on that. We'll keep that in the works. Marianne says, hi Jess, did you see that landscape rescue with Stuart Moore? Gave you a shout out on his channel. New Arc Gardener also said, hi Jess, I was watching another YouTube channel and he mentioned you. He said he was going to subscribe to your channel. I can't remember his exact name, but it's something like Rescue with Stuart. You guys, I didn't know who this guy was, but I read that comment and I was like, holy cow. So I Googled and I found him and I clicked on one of his videos and he was shopping clearance plants in Lowe's, which I loved, and he is hilarious. I was laughing my butt off, but oh my gosh, that was so nice of him to give me a shout out, I guess. But anyway, thank you, Stuart, if you're watching. I don't know if you watch my movies, but that was very, very nice of you. And I'm gonna cry. Okay. Just thank you for doing that. Okay. Thank you for doing that. That was very nice of you. And thank you guys, Marianne and New Arc Gardener, for telling me that and for showing me his garden channel, because that was really fun. I literally laughed my butt off when he was talking about different things, and I'm gonna go back and watch some more of his movies. So anyway, thank you so much for telling me about that. And I think that was all for now. There's so many other comments and questions that I could go through. Like, you guys are very encouraging to me, and I can't thank you enough for your suggestions and your comments and your encouragement, and especially with like my music and the songs that I write. Sometimes I'll throw a song on there that I wrote. I have tons of songs that I wrote, but it does take a lot out of me to put them out there on my movies, because it's very, I don't know, it's intimidating to put something out there that you wrote. But anyway, I just want to say thank you guys for watching all the movies that you watch, and I really truly appreciate all of you, and I hope that you are having a really great day. And if you have any other questions, let me know. I'm just a self-taught gardener. I don't really know what I'm doing except for my personal experience and what I've experienced in my yard and what I've seen succeed and fail in my own personal yard. So that's all I can speak to. But I'd be happy to speak to that if you are wondering. Anyway, thank you so much, and I hope that you have a really great day. Bye. Alright. Hopefully that was good.